Hey, thanks for tuning in to part 2 of this series. I'm Andy Miller, and you're watching Boatworks Today. Now, for those of you that haven't seen part 1 yet, check it out. It's the video that's just before this one. Now, I'm going to try and include a link somewhere up around here, but if I can't figure it out, I'm going to also include a link down in my description below. Now, before we jump into the video, I want to pass along a little bit of info on the materials I use for this video, as well as some general safety considerations to keep in mind when you're working with composites. Now, first and foremost, wear some personal protection. And by that I mean, some gloves, Tyvek suit, respirator if you're going to be working in an enclosed area, and eye protection if you're going to be grinding or working overhead. Also, make sure that you dispose of any unused material properly so that you don't create any fires. You don't want to burn your project down. And lastly, keep your work area clean and organized. Last thing you want to do is trip over something and spill a big cup of resin all over the floor. And trust me, I've done it. It's a pain in the ass to clean up. Now, for this part of the project, I'm going to be using a polyester-based laminating resin and 1.5 ounce CSM or chop strand matting. Now, I'm using this glass because it's material that sands smooth and it doesn't give you any kind of a print through or visible pattern in what's eventually going to be the painted surface. And it's also easy to work with, and it takes bends and the curves really well. So now that the initial sanding and the prep work has been done, it's time to start laying up some glass. So enjoy the show. Oh, yeah, one more thing. Please remember to subscribe to this channel and remember to post a comment. I want to know what you think. So here I'm starting the glassing process by coming in and essentially spot filling all of the areas that I ground out in the previous episode. Now, the reason I focused on these areas specifically was because of the severity of the surface cracking. And by grinding them down as deeply as I did, I was able to remove the defect that was in the original glass layup, and now I'm able to rebuild it with some fresh material, which is going to provide a good, sound, solid surface to build on. And each of these areas that I'm going to be spot filling, they're going to get, on average, probably 5 or 6 layers of this CSM or chop strand matting. Now, when I want to make sure that I overfill them just a little bit so that when I come back and sand it, I'm going to have a perfectly smooth, fair surface. I'm not going to have to really rely too much on any kind of a fairing compound. And generally speaking, when I'm working with this type of fiberglass, I prefer to tear it rather than cut it. By tearing it, as you can see, it gives me these nice little wisps all around the edges, and when you're wetting them out with the resin, they kind of naturally feather off on their own. If I would have cut this and laid it in, I would have essentially a hard cut edge that I would have to either sand off or try and feather back in with either some more glass or some fairing compound. This just saves a step in the process. So here you can see I've gotten all of the areas that I ground out filled back in with the glass. And I didn't bother filming all of that because honestly it would have been really boring. You've seen 2 spots filled, really you've seen the process for filling them all. Now, all this layup was done using a laminating resin, and that means it's a resin that doesn't have any kind of a wax in it. Now, in order for this to fully cure, that top layer needs to be sealed from the air. So I'll use a finishing resin with wax. Now, with all the spot fills sanded back down and feathered in, now it's time to start laying up the bulk glass on the hull and the top sides. And if you look at this, you can see I've already got all the glass hanging. Now, the way that I did this was I used some 3M spray adhesive and just lightly tacked on the glass so that it would stick onto the surface, and I wouldn't have to be fighting that while I'm trying to roll a resin on at the same time. The spray adhesive has no adverse effect on the resin, and actually it just dissolves into the resin. So this makes the layup when you're working with large areas really, really easy. This was kind of a neat little trick that I kind of stumbled across when I was toying around with some vacuum bagging and specifically with resin infusion. But that's a whole nother video in and of itself. But if it's something you'd like to see or learn more about, let me know and I'll add it to the video lineup. I mentioned in my first show that I wasn't going to be in the habit of playing salesperson for particular products or manufacturers unless they have proven to be exceptional and worthy of a special mention. Now in today's Tool Corner, we're going to be talking about product from Quick Cut Sanders. If you followed the Boatworks Today series, you see me use the sander on a number of things as well as throughout this restoration project. Now for me, the initial appeal to give these guys a try was because of the possibility for dustless sanding. Now it seems like half my time is spent sanding, so there's also a convenience appeal to me as well. Basically anything to make it easier and faster. Quick Cut makes two different models that come in two different sizes. They offer both a finished sander and what I would consider more of a rip and tear model. Now each of these are offered in both a 3 and a 6-inch size. Now the difference between the finish and the rip and tear sander is the amount of movement on the sanding head. The finished model has a 2.5 millimeter movement, while the rip and tear has a 5 millimeter movement on the head. Now I only have the finish units, which work really well for the paint, primer, and the gel coat, but I would have liked to have had the more aggressive unit for the glass work, as it just would have gone faster, but the finished sander still got the job done. The 3 inch is what I use for detail areas, basically where the 6-inch just won't fit. And the larger sander is where I use for more open areas I just want to work real quickly. Now both sizes are well balanced in the hand and they offer excellent control. In the long run, they save a lot of time on my projects. I'm not going to get into the setup and the operation of these sanders, as there's already videos on these topics that you can watch on their website. But I do want to strongly recommend this product to anyone that's looking to do a restoration project, or really even anyone that does a fair amount of repair work, as this is going to save your fingertips a lot and your shoulders a lot of wear and tear, and at the same time, shave a lot of time off the overall job. If you follow this Boatworks Today series, you see me use the sander on really everything from varnish work to gel coat repairs, fiberglass, paint prep, really you name it. It's a tough little tool and it would make a great addition to your shop. If you'd like to find out more, please give these guys a call. Their sales staff is first class and they can answer any questions that you have. I'd like to give a special thanks to Rod Carpenter from Quick Cut, who has been very helpful and generous with helping out with this project. So a big thank you to everyone there, and I hope that you've enjoyed what I've done. And in the next show, we're going to be doing some fairing, a lot more sanding, and finally, some spraying. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you again real soon.